Welcome back. You're listening to Cindy Laverty Show on CRN Digital Talk Radio. My guest today is Marcel Pick. We're talking about adrenal fatigue, and I need like 4 hours with Marcel's, but I don't have it. So anyway, hopefully you'll come back one day.
I'll be glad to.
Good. All right, I just want to touch on sleep. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but some natural supplements to help you sleep if you have a problem with that. I have a problem with that. And I think sleeping pills are one of the most overly prescribed medications that we give to people today, isn't it?
I completely agree. The problem for me with sleeping pills is we're not really looking at what the problem is.
Right.
We're just doing what we oftentimes do that I'm uncomfortable with, which is finding a issue, giving a quick fix, and then there we are.
Right.
So it's really starting to understand, is the person not sleeping because they're too hyped up at night, in which case we might want to decrease their cortisol level. Is a person not sleeping because they have a melatonin issue?
Mm-hmm.
Is a person not sleeping because they have sleep apnea? All of those need to be addressed to figure out what's the problem, and then we can get them to sleep better.
Okay, so how would you find that out if you're a person who has a hard time sleeping?
Oftentimes, the first thing I'll think about is, how are they sleeping? Are they falling asleep and then waking up in the middle of the night, which is very typical of what you see for people that have high cortisol levels.
Right.
Or the people that are wired and they can't quite kind of get to sleep. Those people oftentimes have cortisol problems as well. But if you try something like phosphatidylserine and you find it really isn't helping, then you might want to try some melatonin as well. But the really important part, Cindy, is they've got to do sleep hygiene, which means is they've got to turn the TV off or the computer or the BlackBerry or the iPhone, the iPad, which we're not doing.
Sleep hygiene. I love that.
Well, it is. It's, you brush your teeth, you do all these things, but we stay plugged in. We have computers in our bedroom. We have, all kinds of other things in our bedroom. We should have no TV. The bedroom is for sleep and for sex. Let's just get everything else out of there, and let's just keep it what it's for.
Right. Okay, that's good. Chapter 8 of your book is really one of the most fascinating parts of this because you pull together, it's transforming your physical, mental, and emotional condition. So it's a whole holistic approach to wellness.
Right.
And I know we can't address all of these components in the time that we have left today, but I just want to have you talk about why it's so important that we address the emotional along with the physical.
Well, the reality for me, Cindy, is that I've been in practice for almost 30 years, and what I've seen time and time again
You don't look old enough to have done that.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
You can't see me, though, but I know what you mean.
I can see your picture on the book.
Okay, you're right. So what I found is that I am, and I've been doing this for a very long time, I continue to be amazed at the degree to which what we think, how we feel, things like guilt, things like over-responsibility, things like perfectionism.
Shame.
Oh, my God, shame is huge. All those things, when people start to deal with it and find ways to really change the way they approach life, makes people 10 years younger. Their symptoms start going away. They no longer have some of the disorders that they have. It's astounding to me, and this sad, sad part is that in our conventional medical model, it's never addressed.
Right.
And they did a very large study that I talk about in the book. It was done in 2001. They looked at, and Kaiser Permanente and the CDC actually did this study. It was 16,000 men and women, which oftentimes, makes the front page of the New York Times. It was never mentioned. They looked at if you have childhood stressors, a parent that screams, that yells, that perhaps just isn't supportive.
Right.
Are there health consequences later in life? For example, with higher risk of heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, and cancers. You know what the answer was? A resounding, huge correlation between adverse childhood events and health later in life.
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
Of course it doesn't.
It doesn't surprise me at all because if you don't have some balance going on, and I think there's some spiritual component attached to that also.
Absolutely.
I'm not talking religion, I'm talking spiritual. We're basically spiritual creatures.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But, we have such a hard time, and that's where women get stuck, because a lot of times they're really coming to that place of understanding or trying to make that connection. And in the system we have is they're told, no, it doesn't make any difference, or you're too sensitive.
Right. Well, I
too
work with,
overreactive.
I do coaching for family caregivers. And the one thing that they say to me is, I don't have time to do all these exercises that you want me to do for myself. I go, well, how much do you value your own life?
Right.
And they're not even thinking like that.
Right. And the place to start for me is we need to start looking at what was their childhood like, because I guarantee you they didn't have a model of someone who took care of themselves.
Right. Oh, I'm absolutely certain of that.
And that's why it's so important for all of us to do an inventory of ourselves. And this is not about you're a horrible person. When you start looking inside, you're going to be so dismayed at what you find. It's the opposite of that, which is no wonder you respond in the way that you do, but how do you now learn to do it differently?
Right. So where do you tell people to begin with that? Is it with a journal? Is it with some meditation?
Wherever they're comfortable. I mean, some of the people, there's a program called the Hoffman Institute, which is actually outside of San Francisco. I might suggest them go there.
Uh-huh.
It's an 8-day program. It's equal, in my opinion, to 10 years of therapy. I might say that they, start with a therapist. They might want to start with a 12-step group if there's alcohol involved. They might want to do Al-Anon. They might want to start with a gratitude journal. Wherever they're comfortable starting. But many times when I see people, they are up against the wall. They are so unhealthy.
And they're repeating what they've learned.
Pardon me?
They're repeating what they've learned as children.
Absolutely.
And we carry that with us.
We so carry that with us. And I call it, we have patterns that we developed as kids to survive.
Right.
Thank God we had them.
I'm ignoring Paul, who's telling me I have to go to break.
Okay.
I don't want to go to break.
I'm sorry.
I'll be right back.
No problem.